Thank you for listening. And yes, it is true. I have been passionate about sheep for just a little while now. So that's why I'm very excited to be here today and talk to you all about sheep and why thinking like a sheep, putting yourselves into their hooves to understand what makes them happy, is a win-win-win. A win for the animals under our care, a win for the consumers and markets buying our product, and a win for you as a producer. Now, I can see everyone is already saying this makes sense, especially the sheep producers in the room, because sheep are well known for their intelligence and decision-making skills. But for those of you that don't have the privilege of working with sheep, this thinking can equally be applied to any animal that you'd like. So let's do it. Let's think like a sheep. Imagine that you're one of these ewes or lambs grazing your way across the landscape, choosing where to go to take your next bite, socialising with your flock, and sitting down in the shade to chew your cud. Then imagine you're that same lamb or ewe in a feedlot or containment yard. You've got a nutritional buffet of food in front of you. The environment's been designed to keep you safe and comfortable under the local conditions, and you've been drenched and vaccinated and are frequently monitored to ensure that you stay healthy. How could you not be happy? Well, it turns out that taking care of the nutrition and environment and health is only part of our happy sheep picture. Temple Grandin is an animal behaviourist who is famous for putting herself into the hooves of cattle and understanding things from their perspective. We sat down over a juicy beef steak in Colorado a couple of months ago to discuss this very topic. And she said to me, freedom from distress is not enough. They need to have a life worth living. A life worth living. And the missing piece of this happy sheep puzzle is behaviour. The ability to express natural behaviours, behaviours that have evolved over millennia, behaviours that they have a natural drive, a need to carry out. And it's only when we take care of all four of these factors that our sheep experiences a happy, positive mental state. It has that life worth living. And taking care of this full picture, including behaviour and the happiness of our sheep, is especially important in intensive situations like feedlots, where they have the potential to be barren and really restrict those behaviours if we don't take care of them. Okay, so if we add behaviour into the equation and we have a happy sheep, that's a great win for the sheep. But in a commercial production system, is it really necessary? Well, as it turns out, taking care of behaviour considerations can have some really big wins in productivity. Feedlot lambs in Spain grew 56 grams a day faster, and feedlot goats in Queensland grew more than 200 grams a day faster on the same feed intake when those behavioural considerations were taken into account. These are some absolutely winning numbers, really big wins for our productivity. But it turns out that we're only just beginning to understand the importance of behaviour needs and the happiness of our sheep in terms of productivity. Not only this, our consumers also win. The science is showing that when animal behaviour is added into the equation, we are getting a better quality lamb product, and our consumers are having a better eating experience. Win. And as an industry, we also need to be aware of maintaining our reputation and the potential for market restrictions to be put in place, or for our regulations or burdensome regulations to be enforced upon us if we aren't proactive in this space. So what do we do? How do we take behaviour into consideration on our farms and feedlots. This is where we need to go back to thinking like a sheep in that paddock situation. What behaviours would they be carrying out? And how can we make changes to our production systems to provide them those opportunities to express those behaviours in a feedlot or other farm settings? These are just a few examples of what I've seen on my journey, but it's going to look different for each of you. You need to figure out what works for your animals in your production system and your environment. We've only just managed to scratch the surface of livestock behaviour today, but I hope that you can see that a happy sheep means a happy consumer, a happy market, and a happy farmer with all of these potential upsides. So next time when you're at home on the farm, think like a sheep. Think like a sheep. Give them a life worth living, and it will be a win for us all. Thank you.
That is fantastic, Sammy. I just love it, and I've taken lots of notes because Cecil, Ernest and Cookie, my entire sheep herd, my entire sheep flock will be very eager to make sure I'm adopting these practices. So why do you think we have overlooked this area? Why haven't we done more study? Is it just because we've thought it's really simple?
I think there's a few different things that have led to that, and I think one of them is that the link between productivity and this animal behaviour hasn't really been communicated to an industry level. I think in the research space, they're just starting to get an understanding, but that connection back to us as producers has been missing. So we're just seeing it as one of those, wishy-washy, nice-to-have situations when in reality, this is underlying the whole productivity and profitability of our businesses, as well as, it's not one of those things being forced upon us by, the consumer who has no concept. But it's interesting going around talking to farmers and feedlotters all around the world. When we talk about this topic, they're like, oh no, I know my sheep are happy. You can just tell they're sitting down, they're chewing their cud. And I think to an extent that's true. But I think when you see those uplifts in productivity, when you take those extra steps, what it's showing is that, sheep and other animals like them are often prey animals. So they've evolved to suppress those suppress signs that they might be stressed or not feeling happy, so that, they don't look like a good prey option. So it doesn't become obvious, particularly for sheep.
So did you do any, in that observation, because I'm just thinking about looking at our animals, so did you do any heart rate monitors on sheep, or was it, were you going from a sheep that is actually stressed and we know that affects our productivity because they simply won't put the weight on. Mm-hmm. So they were stressed but hiding it really well, internalising it, or were they just in this kind of neutral place where they're just and even that wasn't enough for them to have the same productivity as the sheep that's I'm nailing life.
And I think the reality is that it could be a little bit of both. Yeah. I think it's that free from might get you to that neutral state. So taking care of hunger, thirst, disease gets you to the neutral state.
But to go up the next level.
But to get to that next level, which is taking into account that full picture for the happy sheep, is where those next level gains are. And, if you're in feedlotting or if you're growing out ewe lambs in containment, you can get 200 grams a day. They're just mind-blowing numbers. You can either sell them quicker, you're not feeding them as much, taking the pressure off of your whole production system. So if you're not excited about these numbers, then maybe feedlotting's not for you. But it's just a really big area that's only just beginning to emerge.
Well, I'm just reflecting on it. When we talked about horses earlier with Adam, I'm reflecting on the way animals can find entertainment in things we don't want them to find entertainment in, like irrigation A whole lot of thoroughbreds at Armidale that find pulling apart irrigation equipment really entertaining. I'm sure their quality of life is fantastic. So what work in your travels did you see that was maybe surprising or particularly exciting, or someone that you thought was just doing this really well?
Well, there were a lot of examples of things that I picked up where people were doing things by accident. And one common one I saw in the commercial scale feedlots was they didn't have the time or the opportunity, or the weather wasn't right to be fully cleaning out the pen constantly and actually taking all of that matter out of the pen. So they would push them up to keep the pens clean and be leaving piles of manure and dung in the middle. And that's where, the cattle and the sheep were either climbing, sorting out their social hierarchies using that topography in the pen. And a researcher in Scotland put it very succinctly and said they can't express behaviour without topography. And we've designed feedlots and containment yards so they don't have sharp edges, and they're safe in that way and easy for us to clean and simple in that way. But then we've made them barren and boring.
It's like the playground thing for kids. If there's not a certain percentage risk they're going to break their arm, they don't want to play on it. It's like that for sheep. There you go.
Yeah. Even little things like a goat producer in Scotland had noticed that just by putting some things in the pen and moving them around, the goats weren't escaping anymore. So she wasn't coming to the shed every morning and having to get 4 or 5 goats back into the pen. She'd put what they needed where they were, and so they were happy to stay there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sammy. That's awesome.